guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video for Honeybee Stamps. Today we are going to be using a couple of different products. This one is the kind of the star of the show, the lights from this one, and it is a mouthful. It's the Christmas Lights Vintage Gift Card Box Add-on. I'm also using the Pine Cone Lovely Layers and the Winter Bouquet Honey Cuts. And then the sentiment is from this same set. So if you have the vintage gift card box, this is an add-on set for it. Or you can just use the images included to make a card, which is what I'm doing today. Totally fell in love with these like old school vintage lights. And I wanted to create like some garland with it was the game plan going in. So I'm going to stamp out a bunch of different lights. We're going to color them up a couple of different colors with our alcohol markers, and then we are going to do some ink blending to build out our garland, and then finally we're going to do, I didn't intend to do it, but that's how it ended up, a little bit of mixed media. I seem to be incorporating that a little bit more into my style lately, and I'm kind of enjoying it. My look is still very clean, but it's fun to kind of play around with some other things without them being too super messy. So now that my stamping is done, which I did use the Honeybee Intense Black ink for, it is safe for alcohol markers. I just have like a half a sheet, long ways of white cardstock that I am using. Honestly, this was leftovers from my son coming up to make a card. And so it wasn't cut perfectly straight, which is totally fine. I just use it for things like this. So I'm not wasting my cardstock. You'll also notice that I am paying absolutely zero attention to my ink blending. I'm not making sure it's even. I'm not making sure I'm starting off the page. I even put a fingerprint on there because I accidentally put my finger into my ink pad. It literally does not matter. It doesn't matter what the whole background looks like because we're just going to die cut out of it. So none of it is going to be seen together. It's all going to be seen cut into separate kind of pieces. So I wanted some yellow greens for my holly. I wanted some blue greens for my pine. And then I needed just a little bit of red for the berries. So I'm just kind of working my way across. I probably was a little heavy-handed with the yellow green. I probably didn't need that much, but that's okay. It ended up working out that I had enough to do the look I was looking for. So for the yellow green, I went with crushed olive and rustic wilderness. For the blue green, I'm going with pine needles and iced spruce. How fitting. We're cutting pine. You get what I'm saying. And then for the red berries, I think I went with candied apple. But we're going to do a little bit because I can't ever leave anything alone. I cannot leave well enough alone. But that's okay because I was happy with the way that it turned out. So, once I get my ink blending done, I told you, I got all this stuff from Ranger recently, and Honeybee is so great. They carry almost all of these same things in their store, so it's kind of like a one-stop shop, which I appreciate so that I can save on shipping. But anywho, so I'm going to go in with some sprays and also some ink. No, there was no ink. Water spatterings. I used aged mahogany too. Forgot about that. So that way I just had a couple of different tones. You could totally do this next part in a spray box, but because I wasn't spraying a ton of it, I wasn't worried about it. Plus I'm working on a glass mat, so I can just wipe it all up. But if you are really going to go to town with your sprays, then you would probably want to put it in a box so that you don't spray everything all over. So for my sprays, I have peeled paint, iced spruce, and candied apple, and I'm literally just going to do 1 or 2 sprays. This is not watercolor cardstock. It is regular cardstock, which means that it's just kind of going to absorb right in. So we don't want to be too heavy-handed with our sprays, but this is just going to, again, make these die cuts just a little bit more interesting without really having to do a ton of extra work. I'm also doing just some clean water spatters, again, just trying to create some interest in our die cuts. You can do this part or skip this part. You can do one of these or all of these or none of these, whatever makes you happy. Moving on to the coloring, as I said, as soon as I saw this set, the lights, I was like, oh, I must have those immediately. And the look I was kind of going for, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but like the old kind of cheap old Garland that had the colored lights on it. That's what I grew up with. That is what I still currently have in my house because it's just nostalgic for me. It reminds me of my childhood. And so we usually put it on the mantle, or sometimes Peanut will want to, we have like a front entryway kind of cart that we decorate. Sometimes he'll want to put it up there. I think one year we wrapped it around the banister of the stairs. But it's just like super fun and festive. So let's talk about these lights and how to color them so that they look shiny like glass lights. I am purposely leaving, you can see these very large extra white highlights because that's what's going to make them look like they're actually shiny. And then I will just go in with the lightest color just to blend them in. If when you're coloring, you're kind of eating up that highlight, you can always go back in and add it with a white gel pen. So all is not lost. If you can't leave it, or if you lose it while you're doing the coloring, don't fret about it. Just go back in with a white gel pen and add it. Is there a right or a wrong way to add the highlight? Not really. I mean, because these types of lights have lights hitting them from kind of all angles, you can pretty much add it wherever you want. For this blue one, I am going to do the same thing that I did with the red one. This is a little bit of a longer light. And I'm going to add a highlight kind of in the top left and the middle right, bottom middle right. And again, the first one you saw me go in and lay my shadows with my lightest color, and it's because I haven't colored these before. So I need to figure out where exactly I'm going to put my shadows in order to make this work. And you can do that as well. So basically, I'm going to go in, I'm doing each, different colors. You could do these all white if you wanted. If like that's the vibe that you're going for, maybe that reminds you of your childhood, but mine was always multicolored. So basically going in with the shadows, and I'm following the darker shading lines that are drawn by the illustrator. I'm leaving a gap around the edge so that I can use that for a lighter color, which will help them look like they're glowing. I'm also, again, leaving a very large portion of my highlight white. In this one, I'm doing a center highlight. So my shading is going around the edges, leaving the center light, and then that will work into my lightest color and leave the area in the center open white. The reason I'm showing you this 2 times is to show you how to do the center highlight on both the like shorter squatter bulb, but then also the longer bulb. So again, I'm adding the shading where those illustration lines are, leaving a white gap on the outside, and then just working towards my lightest color towards the center, which is going to give me that bright center highlight. We are going to then do a green one. I think the only other color I missed was orange, but I didn't have room for it. That's just the truth. So going in, darkest color, we're following the illustration lines, leaving a white edge around the outside edge, and then bringing in our next darkest color. With this next darkest color is where we're going to start to leave a area that is open for our white highlight on the right-hand side there and on the top left. Or you could do, like for the blue one, I did the top right and bottom left. Then we're going to use our third midtone to fill in the center as well as that outside edge. And then the lightest color will only be used to just kind of blend out that highlight. This one, you can see it's pretty apparent. I ate most of that top white highlight. No fear. Again, we can just go back in with a white gel pen and add it. Because I had yellow bulbs, which is like a more of a golden yellow, I chose to do the metallic portion of my lights silver. For me, that just means a C1, a C3, and a C5. You can add them really kind of haphazardly. Just kind of like put your darkest marker down just a little bit, adding the lines, just kind of flicking the lines in. For the center highlight ones, I am going to add shading to the left and right hand sides and leave my highlight in the center. Once those are done, I am going to line up these die cuts that coordinate with it and then cut them all out. I am using the pine, the holly, and the berries from the winter bouquet set, and then from the Lovely Layers pine cone, I am using the pine. They have two different shapes. Now, let's get into the glow. Here, there's a couple of different ways you can create it. One is just a white glow, which I'm starting with the Be Creative white pigment ink on black cardstock. This will work on any dark colored cardstock, a navy, a blue, a green, anything that's dark. And so for that, for a white glow, you're just going to go in with your ink blending brush, work from the center out. If you want to color your glow, there is a couple of different ways you can do it. You can go in with a white pigment ink and then go over top of it with a regular distress ink. So to show you the differences, I am going to use the same color. This is Salty Ocean. This is just the regular distress ink right over top of the white pigment ink. And you can see it gives a really soft blue glow. If you want a more obvious, a more apparent glow, you'll want to use a Distress Oxide or another pigment ink. And you can see this one is so much brighter. A fourth option is to just use the Distress Oxide ink, which gives you somewhere in between the two. So it's not as bright as if you put it over white pigment ink, but it's not as subtle as if you just use the Distress ink over white pigment ink. I am going to use the brightest of them, like the brightest versions of them, because I want them to really kind of shine on this black background. It's going to get a little cosmic here in a minute, but I promise hang tight. It will look like a Christmas card by the time it's over. So here I'm just going in, laying out all of my die cuts. I knew I kind of wanted to create a little bit of an S pattern that was going to flow along my card. So I'm just figuring out where I want each of my little bulbs to go. Once I'm happy with where they're going, I'm just going in with my Distress Oxide, the brushes I have for my Distress Oxides, and I'm just kind of marking which colors go where, so I know when I go back in with my little glow where, like, because I'm going to put all the white on there, and then so I need them to be marked a little bit so that way I know which color to put over top. For the oxides, I am using Salty Ocean, Mustard Seed, Lucky Clover, and Festive Berries. And basically, you know, I just tried to pick the colors that were going to be closest to the Copic coloring that we did. Once I have those down, I am going to go back in with this white pigment ink, and I'm just going to go right over top of them. Some of them, well, really just the yellow. The yellow, it really brought out the color when I put the white over top of it. But for most of them, that was not the case. And obviously, if you were doing this, you wouldn't even necessarily have to mark them like I did if you're doing all one color of strands or if you're doing white in general. But basically, just going in and working from the center out to create that kind of soft glow of the lights on the darker colored background. This is super easy. There's tons of, you know, Christmas lights or light up things that you have at the holiday time. So this is a really great time to kind of bring this technique in. Once I have my white down, I am going to go in with those Distress Oxides in the correct colors over top of them. So here is the blue. This, I think, would also be great for kind of like a bokeh effect on a darker colored cardstock. But anywho, we're doing it for lights for now. So we're the blue, the green, then we will go in with the yellow. There is only one yellow light, just because decisions had to be made. You know what I'm saying? You can't include them all in there. And then the red will be last. I will say in doing this technique, I did find it to be much easier to get a good blend and a soft glow using a bigger brush. This red one is a little on the smaller side, and I did have to kind of really work at it to make sure that my edges were blended out. So once that is done, I wanted to do something else to kind of make the background a little bit more interesting. And this is where it's going to get a little bit like, I don't know. It looks like a galaxy background. I've got my more spray. This is the Picket Fence spray, and I didn't want to spray it. I just wanted the droplets. And so I shook it up, and then I took the tubing out and then just kind of spattered it. And then because I love a shine, you know I do, I am going to go in with also some Perfect Pearls in the color Perfect Pearl, and then just do some spatterings of that as well. So the what is this? The picket fence is more of like a matte white, where the Perfect Pearls is a shiny, like silvery white. And this is definitely starting to look like I should put some moons and stars on it. But don't worry, it will come together as a Christmas card. So because I wanted to just move on to adhering my card, you could let this dry naturally. I chose to heat set it. I didn't have any issues with, just hitting it with my heat tool. We're using very small spatter, so it did not take long to dry. And then I can go in. Now, because of the way that the lights are drawn and the fixtures don't have any, they're not plugged into anything, I am going to hide that plug with my greenery. So I'm going in and putting down the lights first. So you'll still be able to see them. They are, large, but their little ends will be covered up with our pine and our holly as we're putting that down. So just going to glue all of these little guys down, and then we're going to start building up our greenery. Oh man, I can't believe we're already into Christmas. Today is Jelly Bean's birthday. Can you even believe it? She's 2. It's gone by so fast. She's such a big girl. She's so sassy. She's like the sassiest baby ever. She wants to do everything herself, which is most kids, as they get to be this age, they want to be very independent. She wants to help with everything, and I try to let her as much as I can. She's funny, and she's a very joyful baby. But we're supposed to be, as of right now, I'm supposed to be having a birthday party, but Peanut got sick. And so, because he got sick on Thursday night, with a tummy bug. And so he hasn't thrown up since yesterday, but we just wanted to make sure we weren't going to get anybody else sick, so we're giving ourselves a good 48 hours. So we actually pushed her party to tomorrow. So while today is her actual birthday and the game plan was to have her party today, we just pushed it for the betterment of everybody, just to make sure nobody, we weren't going to get anybody else sick, because that's the worst. You don't want to be spreading germs and all that jazz. So here, the pine that's included in the winter bouquet set is a little bit more solid, which is great for covering up those little lights, like the little ends of the lights. And then just for some added interest, I never had any of this garland that actually had holly in it. I know that they do make it, but I think that's a higher end, a fancy garland. I didn't have fancy garland when I was a kid, but I was still just as excited to put this garland up in my room or in the family room when we were decorating for Christmas. And I still, like I said, I still put it up now. It's just a nostalgia thing for me. It reminds me of, Christmases at home with my parents, and I hope one day it'll do the same thing for my kids. So we're just tucking in those little holly leaves, and then I'm going to do the berries. This was really just kind of haphazard. I tried to do them in cute little groupings, but really they're just going to be kind of peeking out behind the other layers of pine. And that is why I chose to use the pine cone lovely layers, because that pine is much more detailed. It's much more like an intricate die. So it adds a ton of really great texture on top, where the other pine adds a lot of color to my base. So combining the two, I think, was a really good way to get that actual full feel of the old school Christmas garland. So anywho, we are definitely doing party time tomorrow. So yesterday I had planned on, making her cake and stuff, and we're doing just pasta, chicken salad, stuff I know my kids will eat and other people won't dislike. So I'm going to make the pasta today. I did the sauce yesterday. I figured it would keep for 2 days in the fridge. So because I had already started it by the time we realized that we needed to push the day back. You guys know that I don't necessarily love a white outline on my die cuts. In order to kind of blend them in with their soft glow, I am using just the lightest color from the combination of the Copic markers. I didn't want to color them in black because we have the glow behind them. So I just used the lightest colors, and I think that it worked great. Had I known that I could have just colored them in beforehand before I adhered them down, I would have. But I didn't. I didn't know what it was going to look like and what colors I was going to have to use. Now that I know any consecutive cards I make like this, I will just use the lightest color and not have to fight with all of the the die cuts to get my white edges colored. Thankfully, the majority of the well, I was going to say ornament, but it's not an ornament. The majority of the light is sticking out from under the pine, so it really wasn't too terrible to get in there and color those. But I struggled with how much like the green was. Like the green just wasn't broken up. So here's the first thing I tried, and this worked-ish. I went in with just white acrylic paint and just a small flat brush. And then I started adding little snows to the leaves and to the pine needles. This did work. It did work. If you don't want to add glitter, this will work. I just use the, what is it? It's the apple barrel. I got it at Walmart for like 69 cents or something. It's just white acrylic paint. And so I just added that on top to make my little snows. This totally worked, but I wanted to add glitter to it because, well, I like glitter, honestly. There's no other reason why. I wanted it to be glittery and festive and pretty. So the paint dried too fast is basically what I found. I probably could have like painted a little bit, sprinkled my glitter on, knocked the excess off, and so on and so forth. And that maybe would have worked better, but I did it all at one time and then I dumped the glitter on and I quickly realized that it was just too dry. It was not sticking. So once I did that, and you'll see this here in just a second. This is the Rock Candy Distress glitter. Everybody has raved about it for years. I never had any. I finally got some this year, and I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty great. It's pretty fantastic. So I'm trying to see if it will stick even to the ones that I most recently did. It didn't really stick. So I have to switch to plan B, which is fine. We are people who do not start over here. When we make cards with me, we don't start over. We make do with what we have and we make it work. And I think in the end it does. So I've knocked off all of the excess glitter and now I'm going to go in. This is it's the Snowfall Grit Paste, and I'm using that same paintbrush. I'm just kind of picking up, mostly once I figured out I could use the stuff out of the lid, I just used it from there. And I'm basically just tapping it on right over the white paint. This is giving me like really nice kind of mounds of fuzzy snow. Alternatively, if you don't have either one of these, but you do have puff embossing powder, you could use the puff embossing powder. You would just have to do it before you adhered everything together. And I've done that in the past to add snow as well, and that is a great option. But here, since I did have the snowfall paste, I was like, okay, let me try that. This definitely worked. This worked really great. This is so weird. The only issue that I had, is when I went to put it on the holly, it kind of absorbed the color underneath. So I do have glitter on those leaves, but it's green. It's not white. It's green. It's not white. Well, I shouldn't say it's not white. It's not all white. It's not opaque white. So maybe I might have to figure out something else for the inked portions, but for the pine, and I don't know, maybe it's because it was a blue-green and not a yellow. It didn't really do that on the pine. On the pine, it stayed a pretty true white, but for the leaves, the holly leaves, it did not. Not sure why. And then I will sprinkle that glitter on, and it did stick much better to the snowfall paste, and I was super happy with the way that it came out. I realized very quickly I forgot that little leaf. I had to go back in and get it. So we're pushing the party back. I plan to do her cake as soon as I'm done with this voiceover while she's taking her little afternoon siesta. She's having a Mickey Mouse Clubhouse themed party. So that is the cake that we are making. And true to form, like I always tell you guys, we're just going to make it work. I ordered like different colored sprinkles, black and white and red and gold, because that's like Mickey Mouse colors. And they didn't have black, so I dyed white sprinkles with black gel food coloring. Because even not in card making, I am a firm believer of, well, we're just going to make it work. So, yeah, so here for the sentiment, this is sentiment included in that stamp set. But Honeybee has tons of other great Christmas sentiments. If this one is not for you, I chose the May Your Christmas Be Merry and Bright. I am stamping this in the same white pigment ink onto some black cardstock, and then I am going to emboss this with some white detail embossing powder. After I use my anti-static tool, I should say that. You want to use an anti-static. I know not everybody has the same kind of problems with static. It depends more or less on where you live. Some people never have to use it, but I always do, and I'm in Ohio. So I'm then going to cut this out with their coordinating dies, and in order for this to lay flush, I do have to just sneak a little bit of foam tape underneath the right-hand side, and it's going to be the same thing for the secondary portion, the Merry and Bright. It sits up a little bit higher because of all the die cuts we have layered, and so I did have to just add a little bit of foam tape on the right-hand side. The last thing I did normally is to add a glitter pen, but because I already have so much glitter going on in the snow, I actually just went in with some glossy accents. I could have filled in the entire light if I wanted to, but I didn't. I actually just chose to outline the lights in the glossy accents so you can still see the coloring, but it does add a little bit of shine that I think is super fun. And obviously it takes much less time to dry. And then that's it. That's the whole card. So I hope that you guys are excited about creating a soft glow on your holiday projects this year, or you could use this for like birthday candles. You could use this technique for tons of stuff. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I always appreciate your time, and I will catch you on the next video.